Hello and welcome to another Tuesday Talk with Ruby Reese. My name is Killian. I'm co-founder at Ruby Reese and I will also be your host. This week, a super important topic. We will be talking all about how important our dogs are in our lives and how we can integrate them into the busy modern lifestyles that we have. We will be speaking with Kathryn from Salty Dogs Kerry. And I suppose it's a topic that Chris and I are really, really passionate about, as seen as our whole business, our whole brand of Ruby Reese was kind of started by us going down a rabbit hole a couple of years ago when Ruby was developing food allergies as a puppy, and we started looking at the ingredients involved in all the products she was coming in contact with, and it was terrible when she was, itching and scratching and breaking out in rashes, and you hate to see your dogs in pain or discomfort. And we could tell she was really frustrated, and it was really, really important to us to come to the bottom of it and to figure out what was going on with her. But it definitely came from a place of how much we cared about Ruby and about solving her issues, that we really started looking into products and realizing that a lot of the ingredients that go into things, even premium brands or so-called premium brands that are positioning themselves as having tippy-toppy quality, kind of can leave a bit wanting once you start looking under the bonnet. So we decided that we would take on the challenge of trying to put together a top quality brand with clean ingredients and ones that are brilliant for dogs. And I suppose we're very, very lucky to have such a brilliant community like yourselves that are listening into the podcast regularly and that are supporting us locally. And without you guys, genuinely and very obviously, our company wouldn't exist, and that passion that we would have would exclusively be for Ruby and not for the rest of the dog world. So thank you for helping us to share that. But I suppose it's important also to say that we're growing and developing, and it's a really exciting time at Ruby Reese. We've hopefully two kind of cornerstone announcements to make over the next couple of weeks, and maybe pushing into months for the second one. And really, really big announcements. And I think it's been crazy the last couple of weeks that I think we've all seen how social media and how algorithms can be affected by very few people that are at the tops of these companies and head of legislation, and how quickly things can change. So I suppose we will continue using social media and using this podcast channel as a means of communication, but for any of our big announcements, we will definitely be announcing those via newsletter, because that is something that's guaranteed to arrive in your inbox. That is a guaranteed channel where we can communicate with you, and it's not just going to disappear overnight. And it's not going to be down to an algorithm to decide whether you should be in the mood to see our news or not today. So we are definitely going to put even more focus on our newsletter for these big announcements that are coming up. So if you're not already subscribed to our newsletter, please head over to our website at a time convenient to you. That's ruby-reese.com, and you'll get a pop-up anyway, but at the bottom of any page you can sign up to our newsletter, and then you'll be privy to all of our updates very, very first, and not have to wonder why the algorithm didn't show it to you. It'll arrive in your inbox the minute we are ready to make those announcements. So getting back to the importance of our dogs, and I suppose moving on from why we even set up Ruby Reese, I think it's fantastic to see so many people caring about their dogs so much these days and really integrating them into their lives. obviously, if anyone's listening in that has a cafe, a hotel, a minibus service, taxi service, the more dog friendly things that come online, the more dogs we're going to have that are used to using these services, and the more we can integrate them into their lives and into our special occasions, but also just, you know, our average weekends. And you know, they'll get more and more used to playing a more public role in Irish life. And I definitely think when you go into locations, event locations, or you know, bars, restaurants, hotels, and you see dogs around, it just changes the atmosphere into something really, really friendly when you do see it. Anyway, so we're talking today all about, you know, the importance of our dogs in our lives and integrating them into important parts of our modern lifestyles. So without further ado, I am now delighted to invite you to listen into the chat that I had with Kathryn from Salty Dogs.
Hello, Kathryn. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for coming on and joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Would you do us the pleasure of introducing yourself briefly?
Yes, my name is Kathryn. I am from Tralee, living in County Kerry, and I'm a veterinary nurse for the past, I suppose, 15 years, and I run a business called Salty Dogs Kerry.
Amazing. And tell us a small bit about Salty Dogs Kerry.
I formed it last January, where originally it was minding dogs in my house. So just kind of your usual dog boarding, taking on 1 or 2 dogs at a time. And then over time, that kind of transformed into Salty Dogs Weddings, where I bring dogs to people's weddings and have them involved, whether it's from photos or ceremonies or whatever way the owner wants the dog involved. I'll be there to bring him or her.
That's brilliant. And I'm guessing because, you know, your business sounds pretty dog focused, like our own is. Do you have a dog yourself?
I do. So we got Finn around 3 years ago. He's actually here at the moment looking at me. He's a red setter cross retriever. So yeah, he's the main focus of Salty Dogs. All my marketing is kind of focused on him, and he welcomes all the dogs to come to stay here. He's very social, so he loves everyone that comes, really. So we're very lucky that we have him to be able to keep us busy and out and about.
Brilliant. And so your business is really focused a lot, I suppose, on integrating dogs into our lives, and I suppose it highlights a bit, in a way, you know, what a central figure dogs have become in our modern lives. Why do you think dogs are such a part of our lives now?
I think a couple of different factors. Like, I definitely think people are more aware of how dogs can help people, whether it's, you know, emotional, physical, you know, learning difficulties, children. I think people are just a lot more aware of it. And I think from my point of view, I suppose my demographic of people and who I deal with when it comes to weddings are people who are probably in their 30s, getting married later in life, having kids later in life. And I think kind of the next step would be getting a dog, really. So like for me, I'm in that position as well, where we own a house, but we haven't got married, we don't have kids. So our dog is our child, really. So I think, you know, the demographic of who I deal with are people like that who might have a bit more disposable income to spend on their pets, and really kind of integrate them into their lives, where they become part of their family and almost their child or their brother and sister or whatever. But yeah, I think, and then also I suppose the amount of research that's going into veterinary care and the pet industry, and the amount, I suppose, the pet industry's value at the moment. You know, there's a lot more research going into it and looking at how dogs can be of you know, advantage to us in certain degrees, and how they can help us, like looking at the wildfires and seeing the dogs that are helping with that. And, you know, there's all that kind of thing that comes into play. So I think, yeah, dogs are definitely more of a part of our lives than I think they ever were before.
And I suppose you can see why, because they give you so much back as well. You know, whatever you put in, they give it back tenfold.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And have you seen it? You said you've been working in kind of the veterinary field for about 15 years. Have you seen that role of dogs kind of evolving over that time even as well?
Yeah, and I think, like, when you're a veterinary nurse especially, like, you see, you know, going from your puppies, I suppose, all the way up until, you know, the dog may have to be put to sleep or, you know, passes away. So you see the whole dynamic of, you know, a family getting a dog and the joy of that, and coming in and it's all excitement and learning and everything is new, right up until, you know, the dog is elderly, it's ill, it's sick, and then you have to do the job of putting that dog to sleep. So you can kind of see the whole progression throughout a dog's life and how important that is to people, and how the family unit is so important. Like, we have people coming in, sadly, towards the end of the animal's life, but the family is coming in and is being with them, whether that's, you know, being put to sleep or in the ward. So it's a nice process to be able to see from the beginning all the way to the end. And I think, yeah, certainly people are taking that more seriously nowadays, and the role the dog plays in the family is massive. And I always say, I think it's so important for children to have dogs or pets in general, because it teaches them, you know, emotional stability, it teaches them responsibility, respect, everything like that. So I think it is really important to have some sort of animal in your family if you can, you know, A, afford it, and B, take on that responsibility, because it is a massive responsibility, as you know.
Absolutely, yeah. And I suppose I know the modern side of things around our relationship with dogs definitely is very connected with the modern world. But I suppose the connection goes back thousands and thousands of years. I was recently reading a piece about a dog that was found that was buried by humans in about 30,000 years ago in the Czech Republic, and they'd placed a mammoth tusk into his mouth, like after he had passed away. And they were saying humans had to have done it. So that shows that, like, there was always some sort of a connection there, which is fascinating.
Yeah, unreal, yeah.
Yeah. But in the modern world, lots of people need dog sitters and things like that, and I'm really interested in that side of your business as well. Do you see, you know, trends or changes in the expectations of what pet owners kind of expect from professional dog sitters today?
I think so, yeah. Well, I suppose there's more selection out there now. So you have the likes of your dog kennels, you have, you know, doggy daycare, you have people who will mind, you know, a lot of dogs in their home or in their premises. So I think there's a range of different services out there, and I think that's great for people to be able to avail of that, whatever it costs, whether it's kind of a cheaper option or a more expensive option. For me, I suppose the fact that I am a veterinary nurse gives people, I suppose, the you know, that kind of trustworthy feeling where they feel like, actually, my dog's being minded by a professional. Like, as a veterinary nurse, I suppose from day one you're trained to notice changes really quickly. And even in a young, healthy dog, if I'm minding them, like, you know, you're always kind of aware of things that can happen when they're in your care, and it is a massive responsibility to take that on board. But I think people nowadays, you know, I suppose they respect the fact that I am a professional, and I would always give them advice and I would keep them up to date. And they do expect that back from me. You know, they do want the updates of how their dog's getting on, and is he or she stressed, and are they getting on okay? So I think there is a level of kind of professionalism that you have to show when it comes to minding people's dogs. But I think the fact that I am qualified, it gives people peace of mind then when they are dropping their dog off, that I'll be upfront and honest if I feel like anything happens, you know.
Definitely, and it's so important. Like, I mean, sure, we have our own French bulldog, Ruby, and she's definitely part of our lives. People say, is she allowed in the sofa? It's like she owns the sofa.
She owns the house. Yeah.
She sets the rules nearly, and I
100%.
suppose there's pros and cons to that, but totally understand and identify with the people that kind of want that peace of mind and want to know that their dogs are being looked after, and that someone...
And I think, like, even from my previous experience years ago, like, we would have been happy dropping our dog off to kennels and leaving him there for maybe a week, and that would be fine. But I think these days, because our standards are a little bit higher, maybe we're expecting more, you know, our dog as part of our family, like what you were saying, you want them to enjoy their time away as well, you know, that it's not just see you later and I'll collect you next week. It's actually like, I want you to have a nice time and be exercised and, you know, commit to that. So yeah, I think that is important.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose when you're away as well, the dog is going to be stressed regardless. So you want them to have kind of a similar matching where what they're used to what they're going to, because you know, I'm sure our French bulldog would do brilliantly on a farm. It would just take her kind of say a month or two to kind of, you know, get into it. But I think, you know, you don't want to be making a huge change at a time that could already be a little bit stressy for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I suppose that's a good point as well, to point out that not any one option is going to be suitable for every single pet either. I suppose you always have to look at them as an individual, don't you?
You do. And I think, like, there's room for every type of service. And I think it's great, you know, that there is, you know, different people offering different things. But equally, I always say, like, look at what your dog is like. Are they a stressy dog that doesn't like to be handled or doesn't like to be around people or social interaction? That's going to determine what way you want your dog minded. I have dogs coming here that would be quite elderly or would be on medication or have bad hips, for instance, and they wouldn't get on well if they were in a doggy daycare with 20 other people, 20 other dogs running around, so it does come down to like an individual basis. And also, I suppose, is that dog minder walking your dog? Are they being exercised? Because just relying on them running around a room with other dogs, isn't exercise, I would say. So like, it's important for me that whoever I mind, that we're out and about, we're going for walks, we're going to the beach. And I think that kind of stems from where I got my name, Salty Dogs, is because we're in Kerry, we live by all the beaches, so we're always on them walking the dogs as well. So yeah, it's nice for them, like they have a good time.
Your dog really is going on holiday. It sounds like an all-inclusive resort.
Beachside hotel, yeah.
That's it. And you have a huge responsibility, I presume, as well, in building a bond then with the dogs that are coming to your care.
Yeah.
How do you go about building bonds with these new dogs that come to stay with you?
It can take a little bit of time. Like, there are some dogs that are very confident and they'll trot in and they're very happy to settle in and they'll get on really well with Finn and they'll be playing straight away. Then there'll be other dogs that might be a little apprehensive or nervous or not sure of where they are. So mostly for me, it's just kind of like keeping things very relaxed. That I'm not going to be going over petting them on the head straight away, that I'm, letting them sniff around, letting them find out where they are first. And then when they feel confident, they'll come to me, really. Usually when you get them out for a walk and they can kind of get outside and sniff around, that's important. I'm sure you've probably spoken about it before, but like the importance of letting your dog sniff on walks and how it wears them out and exhausts them. It's important for us to be able to get out and get the dogs out, because that will kind of tire them out as well. And usually stressy dogs will kind of settle in then after a while. But I would always say I'd be very upfront with their owners as well. And if I feel like the dog isn't really settling or, isn't happy with me, I would say that very much upfront to the owner and just say, it mightn't work out this time, and that's fine. I'd rather be honest with the owner, because I know if it was Finn, I'd want to know, if he was upset or anxious. So yeah, I would always say I'll be upfront with them anyway about it,
And I've no data to really back that up, but I'm sure that's been an attitude change, because I can imagine today's dog owners or dog guardians really, really respecting that and saying, God, I love the fact that you're so upfront about that and so honest. Whereas I think 20 years ago, people would have said, what do you mean? Like, look after the dog.
Yeah, exactly. Don't complain, look after the dog. But no, they do, honestly. Anyone I've ever been upfront with it, and it hasn't been many at all, but on a handful of people, I would have just said, look, it's not going to work. Or I would say, let's do a trial first and we'll see. And I'd always be upfront, and they would respect it, because they want their dog to be in a happy, stress-free environment. And if the dog isn't settling with me, I'd say it straight. So yeah, I think they do respect that, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. And like, once the dog, if a dog gets to a certain point of stress, I mean, that stress level isn't going to return to normal for a long time, so
exactly,
it's brilliant just to be able to say, no, okay, this is what's working, this isn't.
Yeah.
And then we've a really exciting part of your offering as well, the dog wedding chaperoning. So that's a really unique type of role. What does your job entail on wedding day?
So this kind of side of the business came around very randomly, because Tyke Fleming, who everyone kind of knows, I think, from social media, got onto me and asked me would I bring his dogs to his wedding for him. And that's kind of how it started. He mentioned me in an article, and I think from then people kind of just had heard about what I do, and started messaging me on Instagram, really, and just asking kind of what my service is and what I could do for them. So I started doing weddings. And I offer different types, I suppose, of services within the wedding. So goes back again to kind of your dog's personality and what they're like and how social they are. I always tell people that's kind of the main advice I would give them first before deciding. But I usually get the dog involved, whether it's from the wedding ceremony to photographs afterwards to being in the house that morning while the bride's getting ready and I'm there with the dogs. It's very kind of a personal approach on how the owners want me involved. involved. I think the main thing that's important to them is that their dog is there, whether it's photos or as part of the ceremony. So I've done a few different ones where, you know, the dogs can be ring bearers and they bring up the rings in the ceremony. And I have done, you know, the drinks reception where I'm around with the dogs during the drinks reception and people are, you know, rubbing them and seeing them. And then I just have done photos just with the bride and groom and the dog. So that would be more if the dog was quite stressed or wasn't really socially kind of confident. I would always advise, let's just do photos ourselves with the bride and groom. And it's really fun because the photographers get involved, videographers, we always get really good shots, and like the dogs enjoy it because they see their owner, the owners love it. They're getting really good photos. And then I suppose the benefit of my service is that I bring them home with me then after the wedding. So like the owner doesn't need to worry about where's my dog going now. You know, I bring them and I bring them home again. So it's a very kind of stress-free, chilled kind of way of getting your dog involved and knowing that they're going home and being in a nice place as well after the wedding. So yeah, I offer lots of different packages. I suppose I always tell people, go onto my Instagram, on my bio has some information there on it. And I was lucky enough to be involved in an article for Irish Country magazine recently on the weddings. Because I've had a lot of people, I suppose, contact me, and it obviously is a need that's out there and people want to get their dogs involved. And as we said, like part of the family, you know, so I think it's important. Finn is jumping up at me. I think it's important to offer that service if the need is there, you know. So it's lovely for me to kind of be part of the wedding day and see what goes down and what photos they get afterwards and make them that contact as well with other people and professionals, which is great.
Yeah, and it's so important, like you say, you know, coordinating the needs of the dog and the wishes of the wedding couple.
Exactly.
Also taking some of that stress off of them as well, because I'm sure you speak with some people that they've kind of an idea or a dream that their dog takes part, but they don't know to what extent.
Yeah.
And they probably haven't, not everyone has probably thought of all the finer details either, have they,
Exactly.
by the time they speak with you?
Yeah, and I you know, I mean, they know they want them involved, but maybe they just don't know how, or they don't know if they're allowed with the venue, or, you know, they have to talk to the photographer. So it does come down to a little bit of kind of fine tuning and organising. But any wedding that I have done, the photos afterwards have been fab, like, and the owners are so delighted to see the dog on the day, and it's all a very kind of positive, you know, attitude there. And you know, the dogs love it. You know, they normally get dressed up, so they have like either little tuxes on, or I had one golden retriever that had a little veil on. So it just depends on what the owner kind of wants to dress them up as, but it's just to get nice photos and to mark the day really and involve your family member in it, really is kind of how it is. So yeah, it's been a really nice kind of avenue of work that I didn't think I'd have.
Yeah, definitely. And I've actually been at a wedding. I've been a guest at a wedding where the bride and groom did have their dog at the wedding, and it was lovely. It brings a whole new dimension to it. And I think even, I suppose, in a strange way of connecting people that don't know each other, you know, if you're talking to a whole room of strangers, and everyone that has a dog will know this, if you're out in public and you want to break the ice with strangers, a dog is the best way to do it, because you don't even have to know someone's name, what their background is. You don't have to have anything in common, and you can just have a chat about how lovely the dog looks.
It's so true, yeah.
You know, share bits of your own life with strangers or with other people you don't really know. And at a wedding, that's a brilliant kind of icebreaker, isn't it?
It really is, because people, every time they see the dog, their face lights up. They're like, "Oh my God, that's Sandy," or whatever. "I didn't know she was coming," and like the dog is delighted to see everyone. So it does definitely break the ice and brings kind of a fun dynamic to your wedding day, and you know, and having the photos as well. Like, we've had some stunning videos and photos of the dogs that have come through, and anyone that I've spoken to afterwards like never regrets having them involved, you know. So yeah, I think, and like I could go from, like, I was at one wedding recently and I was there as the bride was getting ready and having the first look with her dad. So like, you are quite involved in some aspects of it where, you know, it's quite personable, and yeah, but then you could have just, you know, arrive for the photos and leave again. So it really just depends on the owners and what they want, and the dogs as well, like what we were saying. So yeah, it's really nice. It's lovely.
It's really, really nice that it's all so customizable. And have you ever had a dog steal the spotlight at a wedding?
Steal the spotlight. I've had one dog where we went to like this really formal cathedral. It was lovely, and flowers outside the front, and he decided to cock his leg right on the flowers. But no
Of
one
course he
saw it.
did.
But like you'd have those funny elements of it that no one really sees. But like, or you're trying to dress the dog in the car and put on the tux and everything. So you have those little moments which are funny. But no, I haven't had one that's really stole the spotlight. But I think when they're ring bearers and they're bringing up the rings, I think that's when people are like, everyone's staring at the dog, and it's really cute to have them walk up the aisle towards their parents and go up to them and take photos up there. So that side of things is lovely to kind of get them really involved when you have dogs that are really social and happy to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure you put a lot of work in as well with particularly with those dogs that have a big responsibility in the wedding. And maybe relaxing or calming them beforehand and letting them have a bit of a sniff around the area, right?
Yeah, I normally say that like we'll get up in the morning and we'll go walking first thing, because it's just important to kind of get the energy out of them first before you get in the car. And usually I'd have a bit of a drive, whether it's half an hour or 40 minutes, depending on where I'm going. But yeah, you'd usually kind of get them dressed then in the car and kind of get them sniffing around and let them relax a little bit before you kind of get them fully involved. But it's usually quite a relaxed affair, especially on those ceremonies that may not be in churches. I've had a few where they're kind of in back gardens or those events outside in marquees, so it's a little bit more relaxed and you've more room to walk around. But yeah, it's exciting, it's nice.
Definitely. And I'm sure those more kind of informal venues are great for having a dog anyway. I mean, with the dog friendliness aspect of it. But do you think more and more wedding venues are kind of going towards being more dog friendly as well, particularly around weddings?
I think so, yeah, because like any venue that I have been in contact with that I've kind of made myself known, I suppose, are very inclusive of it, and they're very like, oh yeah, we'll send out your details or we'll hold your details. So in that aspect of things, it's great. And I think even churches are a lot more tolerant of it. They will allow the dogs in or outside even for photos and things like that. So there hasn't been a venue where I have found that it's not allowed or anything like that. So that's great. I think they're definitely becoming more inclusive of that and knowing what couples want, and obviously ensuring that the couples get what they want on their day as well. So yeah, it's great for me that I have that accessibility. I suppose a lot of my weddings in Kerry are kind of based in Killarney, Tralee, because they're quite popular venues, but I have done them further afield in Limerick and Cork and things like that. So, travel for me isn't really an issue. Like, I'm happy to travel wherever really, and kind of just discuss logistics with the owner then beforehand, so we're kind of organised.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose when you're talking about people's beloved family members, it's important to have all the details worked out in advance.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Have the plan in place.
Yeah, exactly. And then what about dogs that are normally very, very well treated and know exactly what they want? Have you ever encountered a diva dog who's been demanding VIP treatment?
Yeah, there's a few, all right, that I have come to stay, all right, and they definitely have their own little routines down, and they like to be fed certain food and they like to sleep in certain areas. But I think, like, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see the dogs have the run of the house here. Like, they're on my chairs and on the couch and everything, so they kind of have the run of the house anyway, any dog I mind, which is great. And anyone that I have kind of had here, to be fair, have always been very well, they're polite and they're well trained, and there's no one that have been very destructive, which is great. So yeah, I think the majority of them, to be honest, have the run of the house here, so it's great. Like, I'm happy and Finn is happy to have them over. So I think it would be different if Finn was a little bit more anxious or didn't want to be socialized with other dogs. I think that would change my perspective on it, and I probably wouldn't be able to do it as much as I have been all along. So I am really lucky with him because he's my priority. I don't want to stress him out or make him anxious with dogs coming into the house and stuff. So it is important that he goes. I always tell owners, like, don't ring the doorbell, just let me know when you're outside and we'll come out to you. So it's not like a stressful kind of environment where he's wondering what's going on. So yeah, I think we're very lucky to have him so calm and happy to be around other dogs, which is great.
And you're kind of setting yourself up for success from the beginning, really, aren't you? Because you're already thinking about what's going to provide a kind of a serene environment for them, and then
chilled,
you've already thought about getting out onto the beaches for walks with them and everything, that kind of enriching life for them. So,
yeah, I'm very lucky.
kind of,
like, where we live, like, we have access to lots of different beaches and places to walk and forestry and everything. So I am very lucky that it's kind of a nice wholesome time when they're here, to be fair. So yeah, and then incorporating the weddings into that as well, it just makes the people are just a bit more relaxed when they're organizing all of that. It's one thing that you don't have to stress about with your wedding, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And do you think there's a lot of things that people misunderstand about the work that goes into being, say, a professional dog sitter or indeed a wedding chaperone?
I do. I think, yeah, and even with vet nursing as well, I suppose, from dog boarding and minding them in my house, I suppose there is wear and tear on your house. You have to be very responsible. You're up early, you know, it's like looking after kids, really. Like, so there is a lot of work that goes into it. And I think sometimes people may forget about that. And the fact that I suppose I walk the dogs means that I have to kind of pencil that into my day, and it's time that I'm putting into them, you know. The fact that they're in my house sleeping in the sitting room or the kitchen means that they're in a homely environment. So all of that comes into play, and you know, the majority of my clients are very supportive. They're very happy. They know that their dogs are being looked after. When it comes to vet nursing, I suppose, and my experience with that, I definitely feel like there is a misinterpretation, I suppose, of the responsibility that goes into being a vet nurse and what that means. You know, I suppose it takes anywhere from 3 to 4 years to qualify as a veterinary nurse, and in Ireland we're very lucky that our title is protected. So it means that you have to graduate as a veterinary nurse to call yourself a veterinary nurse. In England the title is unprotected, so it means that anyone can call themselves a veterinary nurse. So it can be kind of a kick in the teeth, really, when you spend so long studying and then, you know, you don't have that title that is protected. And I think sometimes people, from the point of view of like, oh, a vet nurse just kind of helps the vet, and it's a lot of cuddling kittens and cats and puppies, when the reality of it is, you know, your working day can go from, you know, anywhere from setting up drugs to fluids to doing labs to doing a vaccination on a puppy, all the way to euthanasia, to emergency critical care, to, you know, preempting things that are happening with the patients that are recovering, to dealing with difficult clients. You know, your day is very much varied. And, you know, from COVID, and I suppose that's probably why I came out of practice work after COVID, I think everyone was just a bit wrecked from it. You know, there was a lot going on, not to even mention the pandemic and having masks on and gloves and everything. But I think that's what kind of swayed me into going into more of an academic route. So I work for a university now, delivering the vet nursing degree to students. But I suppose that's why I kind of stepped away from practice a little bit, because yeah, it can just become a bit wearying. And yeah, I think there is a lot more that we need to do as vet nurses to promote our role and the importance of it, and, you know, the impact that our job has on people and the care that the animals receive. Practices wouldn't run if it wasn't for nurses, and equally they wouldn't run if it wasn't for vets. So, you know, we have to, I suppose, protect our title even more, and kind of, I suppose, advertise the fact that our role is very important, and we have to do a lot of different things and have a lot of different capabilities to be a good vet nurse, really. So I do miss it. I miss the hands-on experience. I miss dealing with kind of the people and the patients, and I do dip in and out every now and then of, like, for locuming and things like that. And hopefully in the future I will go back to it. But I think, like human nurses and doctors, after the pandemic, you were just a bit wrecked from it all. So we'll see what the future holds in regards to that. But I think, yeah, sometimes people can have the kind of misconception that it's a cuddly job, when the reality is your skill set has to be massively wide, and you have to do a lot of placement hours before you qualify. So there's a lot of kind of detail involved in it, really, before you can register. So we all register as a veterinary nurse when we qualify and graduate, and we sign an oath. So it's an important role, I think, within society. But I think, yeah, it would be great if we could maybe publicise it a little bit more, and the role of what a nurse plays in practice and hospital, you know.
Yeah, definitely. No, and that's a really, really valid point, and one that definitely deserves to be shouted from the rooftops, because you guys do so much. And like we've mentioned all through this episode, how important our dogs and our pets are to us, you know. So it's a critical role, but also the critical part of our life, and probably like, you know, the most time critical parts as well. You know, when you're in an emergency situation, there's potentially nothing more important.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe people only see it when they're in that situation as well. You know, when it's kind of calling into the vets for your pet food, you mightn't see the veterinary nurse or kind of their role, but actually if your dog is admitted in and is in hospital, that's when you kind of see what goes on. So yeah, it's great to have podcasts like this and kind of getting the title out there and speaking about topics like this that are kind of important to the pet industry and veterinary in general.
Yeah, and it's brilliant for me because I get to get little windows into people's lives and professions and everything.
Yeah,
so it's,
yeah, exactly.
it's really, really nice for me as well. So I suppose to finish up, could you give maybe dog owners one piece of advice about including their dog into important live events, particularly weddings, I suppose? If you could give that advice, what would it be?
I kind of brushed on it earlier on a little bit, but I suppose maybe thinking about your dog's personality and what they're like when it comes to kind of planning your decision around the wedding. So is your dog social? Are they confident, or are they more reserved and prefer to kind of be in the background? And I think that will kind of change or waver your decision then on what you want to do, what aspect you want to get them involved in, maybe, you know. And then it's more logistics, kind of thinking of what will work for you on the morning of. Like, you don't want to have the morning where you're trying to, you know, bring your dog to my house if it's an hour away and you have to get back and try and get ready. So it's kind of thinking about the finer details as well, and for me to make it more easier on you, you know, that's what the service is to try and take the stress away from the day and also have your dog there. So I think that would kind of be the main piece of advice, but also anyone that has ever done that or brought their dog to their wedding has never regretted it, and they always love the photos and people love seeing it, and it'll be kind of a talking point, like what we said, it's a talking point for your wedding that people will remember there was a dog at a wedding that I was at before. So I think they won't, you know, no one regrets doing it. So I think it's just being organised and kind of, you know, thinking logistics more than anything, and your dog's personality then on the day as well.
That's it. I suppose the major message I got from that is be brave,
Yes.
do it, but think of the individual in front of you and set yourself up for success,
Exactly.
which comes up so often when we're talking about
Yeah,
dogs.
exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Kathryn. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And once again, a huge thank you to Kathryn from Salty Dogs Kerry for coming on and joining us this week on the podcast. If you would like to find out more about Salty Dogs Kerry, or indeed about Ruby Reese, you can find our websites and our social media handles in the show notes. On top of that, a quick reminder to sign up to that newsletter for Ruby Reese. You can find it on the website ruby-reese.com. Get on that newsletter so you'll be updated first about our new up and coming exciting news that is hopefully coming out very, very soon. As with every week, we will be bringing out another podcast episode next Tuesday. So do feel free to subscribe to this podcast as well as you're at it. And we wish you a lovely week and look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday.